So this is the first installment of WWI Firearms, and this is shotguns. This is a huge opportunity to really get a sense of how these sounds were achieved and dig even deeper into what makes Strata collections unique. So with that said, let's move into the main project quickly. We have two projects, one for each shotgun in the collection, the Browning Auto and the Winchester M1887. So I'm going to dig into the Browning first, and then we'll go over to the Winchester, which is the same one that we saw in the video intro. All right, inside the projects, we have a complete sonic image of both firearms. Obviously, we have the shot sounds with 6 variations each. It's important to understand how our layers are defined for this project before we start digging deeper. So we have body and mechanic, transient and punch, tail. We also have a variety of foley for each weapon. So we've got drop and pickup, and then reloads and dry fires. Using the reload as an example, our foley layers are broken down into basic, details. These are obviously quite useful sounds as they are, but you can really take ownership of the sounds in this collection. It's also really rare that you actually get a chance to have real insight into firearms recording and design. So there's a lot to learn. There's a tremendous edge that you can gain from having this collection as a sound designer. Opening the Winchester. I'm going to start by deconstructing the firing sounds. I'll turn the processing off, and then I'll turn it back on as I move through this. Processing on. Then processing off. Quite a difference. All right, listening to the body. So here we sort of have an intricate chain of some heavy compression, some various distortion and wave shapers, and also some EQ. Taking a look on the right, there are also some macros to be able to control the aesthetic of your sound without necessarily having to open up each and every module. Turning compression on. Then let's go ahead and put the distortion on and wave shapers. And then put the EQ on. Let's check out the mechanic layer. Both the trigger and the rattle tracks here, again, have some distortion processing. One module that's actually particularly interesting on the trigger layer is they have a sine wave feeding into a distortion. So the sine wave is controlled by the envelope of the sound, the gain that is. So listen to it without the sine wave on. And now I'm going to turn that and the distortion on. I thought that was sort of strange at first, but in a very subtle way, it actually does add a little bit of intrigue to the sound that you wouldn't otherwise have. Here's both tracks together, all processing. Here's the transient layer moving to this. Transient has 2 very distinct tracks making it up. So there's a percussive thump and then a bit of a thinner crack. So here's the whole thing. So you should be able to hear that. Thump, crack. Processing further enhances this by using a little bit of drive here. Turn that on. And this is a big one, 80 hertz boost into a soft clipper at the end of the chain here. Second track, again, is making use of wave shapers, some distortion, quite a bit of compression. Finish it off with the soft clipper here too. We can even increase the distortion with the macro here, make it a little bit more intense. Both together. And really take note of the clippers that are on there. That is a really cool tip for getting your transient to really stand out from other things like the body or some of the mechanics or the other components that are ultimately making up the full sound. Here's the kick dry. Now that sounds significantly different. And there's a funny kind of reason why. We actually don't hear the sound of the kick when the enrage instance is on, because there's no input. It's just a sine wave that's being controlled by a series of envelopes here. Plugins on, hear nothing. Turn the sine wave back on. And of course, that's driving into some distortion an EQ to cut out, or it's a low pass filter. Also, really nice touch, there's a punch frequency. So frequency is actually also being automated ever so slightly. It just kind of adds a little bit extra in terms of personality to it. We also have some macros. So there's punch frequency. And then also we can increase the intensity a bit here if we want. Let's listen to the tail. So we have two tail tracks. We have a main tail, then tail early. So these ideally will sit in two slightly different frequency ranges. They occupy a little bit different space. Let's go ahead and look at the processing. So both of these have some similar things going on. There's quite a bit of interplay between compression and distortion. And I'll turn the compression on. Finally, I'll add our distortion back into the mix. And again, we can kind of do some things. We can change the wave shape here. So the cinematic layer, first of all, cinematic layer is actually pretty cool. These are always a little bit different from one collection to another. It's kind of going to make shotgun just a bit more explosive in general. So it has 3 tracks. Let's listen to the whole thing together. So here's what we have. Body, transient. I'll mute the cinematic layer, play the whole sound, entire shot. And then when I add the cinematic layer, really useful if you want a sound that makes it the focus of attention. Listening to just the body, again, just to show you the processing. So this is dry now. And I turn on distortion, very drive. And then some EQing. Transient, completely dry. Transient when I add the distortion chain. Same for tail, dry. Chain of distortion. Finally, we have the additionals layer, which gives us an array of additional microphone perspectives. These are a bit more situational, but it goes to show that they really made every consideration possible when creating this collection. And they did it for every single firearm they recorded. It really blows my mind how wonderfully meticulous some of these collections are in this way. We have RTF from 20 meters, ambisonic even. That's at 40 meters. And these two are really cool. They actually put a mic on the collar of the firearm operator, and then also on the wrist. That's a really cool utility if you're looking to maybe get a somewhat more of an intimate sound. I could see maybe trying to use those and see how it plays. Cool, so that should just about do it. There's going to be plenty more World War I weapons to go along with these. I'll cover in a different video. So this one should serve sort of as a nice primer before we get to those. You can get a sense of all the detail that you can expect there as well. Thank you again for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe so you can see new Strata videos as we release them. Also, if you haven't yet, be sure to check out the Strata sample collections. They're totally free to use, royalty free in perpetuity, as are all Strata library sounds, as specified in the EULA, so feel free to use them in any project. Other than that, if you have any questions, head over to the Audiokinetic community Q&A, or you can leave comments in the video, and we will try to answer and help best as we can. Take care, and I'll see you in another Strata video.